So this one is hot off the press. U.S. Secretary of Treasury Janet Yellen sends a letter to the House stating that the U.S. could default on its debt obligations by June of 2023, 6 months from now. If the debt ceiling is not raised, we could default on our debt here in the United States. The federal government could default on its debt obligation. What does this potentially mean? Well, many would call it financial Armageddon. This would be a huge disaster because this would lead to many of the government's liabilities not being able to be covered. So you start thinking about a lot of the public sector retirement and many other things that the government is responsible for in our society. This could be a huge, huge problem. In the reality, is this likely to happen? Probably not. The debt ceiling was put in place 100 years ago to try to curtail government spending. And this was back in a time where our American society was a lot more conservative than it is today. Since that point in time, in recent presidencies and timeframes, the debt ceiling has been raised over and over again. The reality of it that does make this paramount, and the reason that I'm bringing this video to you guys, again, value packed, is because at some point in time, the government's debt load is going to actually be a problem. We have untold amount of debt in the United States. And honestly, on a global level, debt levels are ridiculously insane. We have more money in circulation just in the last few years than was in existence for the founding of the country. And that's not an exaggeration. If you do your research, the United States has printed more money and put itself in more debt in the last 5-10 years or so than was in existence the entire time in the country prior. This is huge financial news. Not that we're going to default in June, because again, I highly doubt the government's going to let that happen. It's just a hell of a flashy headline. But what is valuable in this is that the U.S. debt problem is going to be a problem. It's going to have huge implications on our currency and our overall economy, and it's going to have ripple effects throughout the globe if we start to really run into default issues. You as an everyday person in this country need to be preparing yourself around these possibilities. And it may sound kind of prepper-like, it could sound really extreme, doom and gloom, but the reality of it is this cannot go on forever. It may go beyond our lifetime. We don't know. I'm not high enough in the food chain to be able to give you much more insight on that. All I can do is give you analysis and commentary on data as a financial professional when it comes out from the source. The reality of it is this is going to be your continued warning sign that you need to get your finances in order. You need to get your capital in order, your credit in order, and you need to put yourself in a position where you have assets, and you need to put yourself in a position where you have hard assets. You need to build your financials up in a way that allows you to have access capital. That access capital needs to start getting you assets and businesses that will start to bring in more revenue. And then that revenue needs to start, some portion of it needs to start going into hard assets like precious metals and other assets that are time-tested hedges against inflation, currency prices, and government spending issues. Because this is where you're going to ensure your wealth, and maybe even have a surplus of wealth if you do it properly. You need to follow this blueprint, because I'm telling you right now, it may be a few years from now, 10 years from now, 15 or 20 years from now, we're going to have a serious revamping of our economy and our government debt structure, and the world's financial and economic structure is going to have to shift in order to deal with the overwhelming amount of debt that governments are stacking up right now in order to keep pushing our economies forward. It's just not realistic. It's unsustainable. And the United States is in the front. It's at the tip of the spear when it comes to this big issue financially. So I wanted to bring this somewhat breaking news to you guys. I just got this information literally in the last 30 minutes or so. And I just wanted to put some context around it for you as the everyday person, because the likelihood is this information will pop up on your screen or your inbox, and you would likely ignore it if you're not already into economics, business, or in the finance space, which is totally understandable. If it's not your thing, it's not your thing. Or if you are watching this content and you're trying to learn, but you can't get your head around what this means for you yet, this video was intended for you. And even those of you who are aware of it, but may not be taking all of the proper steps to be in better position. This is just a motivation then to push you forward. Get your money in order, get your credit in order, get some businesses going, get some assets going, and get your hands on some precious metals and other assets that have historically proven to be resistant and even profitable in the face of economic mayhem that our government is so eloquently positioning us for. This is JP from Blueprint for Prosperity, checking out rather. I appreciate y'all tuning in. I want you to stay focused, stay in motion. I'll see y'all soon.